Hi, Feynman.
Hello, Susan.
Yeah, Susan's out today, so it's gonna be me.
Oh, okay, I just saw it.
Yep, yep.
How was your presentation going at the CNCF Tech Security?
Yeah, it was I think it went fairly well. We had a good audience there, many members of the tag security community, gave them the presentation and they had lots of great questions and feedback after. So it was a good experience.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds great. I think we can talk about that later after other Ratify folks joined.
Yeah, sounds good.
Hi, Luis. Hi, Junchen.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, it was a good experience with the meeting this morning. Nice job, Akash.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you all for the support there. Definitely nice turnout from the Ratify community as well.
Yeah, Finman, thanks for setting everything up and getting all the people together.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's glad to see we have a very nice beginning, and I think we can go through some feedback from the CNCF Tech Security, if possible.
Sure. Yeah. That works. I actually don't have anything else on the agenda today. If anyone wanted to talk about anything, just please add it to the agenda.
I think the only thing to potentially call out is I don't know if anybody from the work we're planning to shipping on December on this next release next week. Is there anything at risk of not making it or anything that we need to uh, bring up?
You have your hand raised?
Yeah, for the upcoming release 1.2, our plan is end of April this month. As we have multi-tenancy PRs and also some work Akash did for the new key providers. So I think there are a lot of changes based on the number of PRs. So my proposal is that we can have 1.2 beta release first. Then we try and test these features, for example, multi-tenancy and also the new key provider, and see any issues we found on the features, as well as how this will be backward capability. Um, then later we can consider maybe just one release candidate RC release. Then we cut the 1.2 release.
So for instance, so I'm assuming we're still producing the Fridays dev build, Akash, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. The weekly build on
Right.
Sunday morning, that's still being created.
Right. So what we could potentially do here is if we're okay shipping a week afterwards, we can use the dev build, do a test pass next week, along with like all the regular, automated tests that we run, and do a final sign off next week after running a test pass. Um, what do you think, E?
So you mean that we can utilize the weekly dev build for
Right.
testing, right?
Yes.
Um, Yeah, I think this is also a good proposal.
I mean,
Uh,
yeah. Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
yeah, I think the goal is to make sure the feature we are going to deliver don't break anything, right? Because if we just cut the 1.2, if anything we didn't foresee or didn't test it, there could be an issue. Then maybe we have to step a major version in case. So it's better that we can test it. And so if the dev build can be used for that purpose, I think it's fine. Our goal is to make sure the release is it itself is stable and the feature is mature enough. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good call. I think we should definitely maybe come up with some targeted scenarios specifically for cosine and multi-tenancy that we wanted to dig on, and then we can do a test pass, validation pass on those. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so then let's use the Sunday night build as a, to use as a test and then validate the build all along next week. If we find any issues, we could potentially like delay a bit more to fix those issues depending on the criticality. I don't think we have any rush shipping this out since I think the image, sorry, there's no, I don't think there's a rush if we delay by a week or two. So I think we should be okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just one more thing for the dev build, anything, for example, I needed to, if I want to try it, anything different from the stable release, because I also would like to try that. Anything.
Yeah, so the only thing that you need to change is how you install the Helm chart. So you need to point to the published dev chart, which is published the GHCR of Ratify. So it's an extra flag. So you do, I think you do like dash dash OCI colon slash slash. I'll provide the command itself that you need to use for the Helm install, but there's a slightly different command for that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Akash. Please share that command. Yeah.
I've also been working through, based off of Susan's suggestion, a list of the cosine and key management provider scenarios that we want to test kind of as part of a bug bash. So I'll also post that matrix once I've completed that. I think I've covered most of the scenarios. There's obviously more complicated ones that we can test, and maybe if others have more suggestions, we can add to it.
Yeah, great. I also have some scenarios, but currently in my brain, I need to write it down, but I will also cross-check your list for sure. Thanks.
Yeah, let's make sure we document all of this as well so that we can have it as
Yeah.
a validation document at the end of the release.
I
Yes.
remember Feynman had a nice validation document that he had wrote up for version 1, so maybe we can like follow something like that.
Yeah.
You mean that blog post or which one?
It was like the conformance test or something. It was like a HackMD document with multiple different scenarios, and we each kind of picked up different ones to test.
The negative test
Yeah,
cases.
yeah, similar to that. Yep.
Yeah, it's a, I think it's a similar format, but we will cover both the normal scenarios and maybe some negative cases. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any of these issues that we want to talk about? These are all the 1.2 ones, 1.2 related issues here.
No, I think we're
Okay.
good.
Great. So quickly run through some of the pull requests that are open. So earlier this morning, I merged in the final cosign PR, which adds trust policy support and multi-key provider support for the cosign verifier. So now that's merged, as well as the design document for the cosign verifier. So that work, at least the first part of the work, excluding the keyless scenarios, are now complete. And the epic that tracks the greater cosign work, I would say about 60% of the items are complete. There's still a lot of documentation items that we need to address and work on. So I plan to pick some of those up next. There's also some scenarios around CLI support, as well as the keyless scenarios that will be in the next milestone. Beyond that, I think we have Binbin has 1, 2, and 3 multi-tenancy PRs. I believe he's OOF today, so he's not here to discuss that. Yeah, he's not here. So we can check in with him later on that. Beyond that, Susan has been working on the breaking change and deprecation document. It's gone through a few rounds of revision. Hopefully it should be ready for review pretty soon as well. And then these last 2 ones are not, I don't think we need to go through those. Okay, yeah, that's all for the pull requests. Any other topics someone wanted to bring up before we kind of go through what was discussed in the meeting today?
I have a question regarding our release strategy, because we decided to, without the beta and release candidate before the official release, right? I think that's a choice. Is there any reason that we do not follow this kind of release strategy? I can foresee one benefit of having the beta and release candidate before an official release, because for the dev build release, it may not be very visible to the community, to other users, because it is only available in the document, but from the GitHub release assets, from the GitHub release page, people cannot find the releases available on the GitHub release page. In general, users will come to the GitHub release page, and as well as the installation guide to get started with the project. But if we do not have beta and RC, I think it may not attract people's interest to give it a try. It may only have our internal folks and Ratify maintainers to try it on our sales side. But if we want to get higher visibility, I'm still thinking having a release strategy like have beta and RC will ensure the quality and the test coverage of the release. It might also be a good marketing opportunities for Ratify, because people might be interested in an beta, but rather than a dev build, right?
How long does yeah, makes sense. I see that the benefits of doing a beta and an RC candidate. I think that what we want to avoid here is having a release exhaustion. How long does typically a release candidate and a beta candidate last for other projects? We've had that, we prior to V1, we kind of went the RC route for a long time. I think we made a decision after our first stable version to go full minor versions. I'm definitely open to having betas and RCs as part of the delivery cadence. But what do you typically see the lifespan of these, and happy to hear thoughts here. Like if we ship a beta, we call it a beta instead of or a release candidate instead of the real stable minor version. Like how long we want to have this out?
In fact, there's not a certain duration between beta and the release candidate and the stable release. I think it depends on how we wanna provide the time span for users to test, and it depends on how we test and make sure the quality.
Right. You know, I think we're open to doing a release candidate if we can get the actual like attention and eyes from other folks outside of the community that we've built so far, right? I think that the challenge that we're seeing right now is if we take the cycles to do a release candidate, are we really gonna get that feedback? Or should we instead move at a faster cadence where we see if we get any feedback or anything from our minor version, we can always fix it on the next minor version. It's a little bit of a trade-off here.
Yeah, it's a trade-off.
So you know, if you guys are okay, we can call this a release candidate, and then maybe have it out for a while. But then that will delay the version 1.2 stable, right? Sorry, the 1.3 stable.
Yeah. If we don't have a hard date to release 1.2, by the end of this month, I think maybe we can extend maybe 2 more weeks for the beta and RC. As Shuwei mentioned, that stable releases can be released after 1 week of the release candidate. That means we don't need to wait for so long before the stable release. I think one of my points for advocating the release strategy of having beta and RC release is because maybe we can take the opportunity to promote the beta and RC and write blog post for these releases.
I see Yi and Sajid have their hands up. Yi, you had for a while.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, my opinion is depends on the purpose. And as you know that we don't have a beta RC for 1.1, right? And for other open source projects, and sometimes we just release the minor release directly. I think it depends on the purpose. So as I said earlier in this meeting, that the purpose for I consider a beta a release candidate is because we have two we have two features involve some major changes and some restructures. So so I'm thinking that to consider the quality of this release, so it's better that we can test it. So it doesn't matter it is a beta or as Luis suggests a dev build. But if we want to share this beta version or release candidate for the community to try something, then this is a different purpose. I think from my side, the main purpose is that we want to verify it to make sure the feature are stable, and also the scenarios from user point of view is meet expectation. Then we can release the minor version, and we promote that version for a user to try out.
Yeah.
And also, as Luis said, there are some admin costs for the beta and also release candidates. Yeah, that's my opinion. Yeah, Sajid, please.
Yeah, I had a different consideration here. I think what I took away from today's call was not that we should be having new features, but having a actively healthy release cadence where you don't have CVEs or like Go mods that are potentially updated with like why. So I understand the discussion of RC and beta, but I was trying to ask like why haven't we cut a patch, a minor update to whatever it is, and they would just be standard Go mod updates and maybe image updates that we do. Nothing big and breaking, but it's more like just a security like there's a reason, like when you download something that's 5 months old, you kind of question like what happened to the dependencies. Are the dependencies the old one or the new one? So that's the motivation I think the question was about, and less of is it actually a healthy project or not. So when people use it, how old is the bits that they're using kind of indicates when the last build was to some extent. So how do we want to prioritize this? The point is we should be comfortable getting a bunch of depend-about merges in, triggering off a patch release because these are all minor patch updates. And that should at least happen once in 3 months, I think. Doesn't have to be on a very regular basis, but I think 12 weeks is a decent enough patch release cycle. I don't know. That's pretty much what I had.
Yeah, I think Yi and Sajay, you talked from different angles. Yi, you mentioned that the major purpose from your side is to wanna have a fully test before the official release. And Sajay, you mentioned that we can have frequent patch releases, whatever there's any security issue fix or any dependency upgrades.
Yeah, and we can follow something like what Helm does, right? They have like a separate branch that's constantly updated. And we can make sure the Go mods are updated on the release branch and re-release a patch if we want to.
Yeah, I actually think Sajid has a good point because our 1.1 release is actually last year, right? So it's about 4 months now. So I mean, from the feature point of view, we always would like to have new features, but if we cannot deliver it in time for some cases, I think we should have a regular cadence for release, patch release to update some dependencies. Otherwise, there will be vulnerabilities. User will be reluctant to try the current release, which released several months ago. Yeah, I think this is a good point.
And to quickly jump in here for folks who weren't at the meeting, the context was that one of the tech leads brought up the fact that our release was in December and was curious why we hadn't released in 5 months. And so we basically mentioned how we were waiting for some of the larger features to come in. But yeah, they also brought up a point about what is your CVE remediation plan? And do you have that somewhere documented for Ratify? And what threshold potentially is there for that CVE where it triggers a patch release? And so I think here there's like 3 work streams. The first one is what Feynman, you guys were talking about, where should we have a beta or an RC or a proper minor release for feature-based releases. Then there's, I think, Sajid, what you're talking about, where we should have patch releases every 2-3 months, which is just as our Go mod gets updated with those depend-about PRs we come in. And I think the third one is also when do we trigger a patch release that's like an emergency patch, or there's a high enough CVE that was detected in a dependency where we trigger an off-cycle patch release as well.
I think from within Auras and Containerd and other projects, especially where we've seen these critical CVs come in, is we pretty much use the GitHub workflow to kind of create a like an embargoed issue and a fork on which we build and do what is necessary, and the maintainers have access to it and they get access to others. We'll end up using a similar flow, and I mean, sure AI can guide you through those kind of processes if you want to. There's no concern there. We've done enough of this. I think the question is we probably want to document this down. That's the trick. So I would say maybe we can use an example of what Auras is doing. And hey, Shiva, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about the support window of the Ratify project. So yes, so if Ratify supports N and N-1 version, we should do patch releases regularly to drive the CVEs from dependencies. For the CVEs to the Ratify project itself, we can use the GitHub advisory feature that someone have a security vulnerability report, and we can just review that report and create an advisory and have a private fork and then fix it and publish a CVE for that. That's the flow. Yeah.
So can we maybe create a couple of issues like update add process for CVE remediation, define cadence for patch releases. Those would be the two things that I think are critical for any stable project. The RC and the feature release branches are kind of like depends on the like whatever the team decides, but these are more like standard processes.
I think yeah, I can take those actions. I did similar PRs for other projects for the release schedule and also the support policy. Yeah, and also the CVE handling is related to the security. I can do that. Yeah,
Thanks,
I will
Keith.
create the issue. Yeah, and I can create a PR for that. Yes, as Shui mentioned, it's one for the security markdown file, another for the release cadence and the support policy. Yeah, I can do that.
So as a follow-up, are we okay releasing a patch, or are we going to go 1.2? What's the current thinking?
I think we can first cut release patch release for fixing the CVEs, and for the 1.2 the feature release because we need 1 week, at least 1 week for testing, and there are also upcoming holidays. So
Yeah,
I assume it will be
yeah. Shui has a hand up, but it also sets good precedence. Shui, go ahead.
Sorry, I forgot to lower my hand.
Oh, it's legacy hand. All right, sounds good. So I think it sets good precedence if we actually handle the CV and release a patch. If people ask, like, yeah, we took feedback from the CNCF tag and we immediately did it, is a better statement rather than we waited for 1.2. I'm okay with that if it delays 1.2 even. It just we can go back and look, and this is what we did last time, so we'll continue that as a much easier statement rather than we're going to make an exception this time. But overall, really cool presentation, Akash. Just want to give you kudos on that.
Thank you.
Oh, I have a question about the vulnerability. Did we get, besides the scorecard, how are we monitoring this? Or do we get like depend about patches for this, or like did we know about this vulnerability?
So typically, if it's like related to a Go mod, personally, I've seen that Dependabot will send a PR to patch
Okay.
the Go mod. This particular high CVE that is remaining does not seem to be related to like a direct package update. I took a little bit of time today to understand where it's coming from, and I'm actually having trouble figuring out, is this a false positive or where does this actually come from? This is a CVE related to BusyBox, and I think by transitiveness, it's actually related to Alpine, which depends on BusyBox to a certain degree. And I can't find any usage of Alpine directly in our build process. So
our base images are not Alpine. What's the base image we use to publish or ratify?
We used Alpine for our CRD base image, and that is not pinned to a version. So the latest version of Alpine should have it. I guess the question would be to check if our release was so far ago that is that
Right.
Alpine version still effective?
Yeah, and if it's a floating tag or rolling tag, then you probably work on an old digest, right? So
yeah, the main Ratify image does not rely upon the Alpine. So It's the distroless image. Yeah.
So technically speaking, we just need to retag and rebuild. That's about it.
If that's actually the cause of it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And that's like another question. I don't know if Shui, if you've had more experience with ORS or notation, how do you verify that the CV is actually fixed?
Pardon?
Do you just, so when you, let's say you update notation or ORS to use to fix the dependency that was pinned to a vulnerable version, is that enough where you just fix it and make sure that there's no more instances of that vulnerable version, or is there some other way to kind of check that you're no longer like running against a scanner or something like that?
So basically, where does the CV comes from? It comes from your dependency or comes from the Ratify itself?
From your dependency.
Yeah, then you just upgrade to the patched version of the dependency. That's fine. Enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a workflow where you then run a scanner on top of that to verify, or is it just you've updated so that's taken care of?
Yeah, I think it will take care of because you have a scanner. I mean, a security scanner in your GitHub repo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that should work.
Okay. Makes sense. Okay. Any more thoughts around versioning and patching?
I think we needed to have a patch release 1.1.1 for updating dependencies and the CVEs, and for upcoming 1.2, we can first try using the dev build. I think we would like user to try the minor release, right? And we want to blog in that minor release. So I'm okay that we can use dev builds. I think the purpose is to secure the quality. Then later we promote the 1.2, the official release. I think as Sajid said, I think the urgency is the CVE. I still have one question on as you shared in the screen. For the CVE, can you point me to that? Where can I find it? Because when I click security, maybe it's due to some permissions. I couldn't see it.
So the other way to check is actually we publish the OpenSSF scorecard report. So you can click on that badge in the Ratify README that says OpenSSF, and that'll pop a large JSON document with the OpenSSF scorecard report. And if you scroll down, you'll see, so I'll just show you right now. You'll see the vulnerabilities detected section, and it should have the, yeah, so you'll see here that it says warn the project is vulnerable.
Okay, so this is how the during your presentation, how the board or some members checked, right? Okay.
Yes, yeah. And I think, yeah, so they mentioned a few of these different scenarios that we're missing.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually that's a good segue. The other thing that they mentioned was that we don't sign any of our build artifacts. So our release artifacts are not signed, and we have no provenance data published either. And so they were wondering why we haven't done that yet.
Okay.
This is something we missed for
Yeah.
Notary project and Aura's release assets. And this is the thing that we need to fill the gap with notation 1.2 that supports the arbitrary blob signing. Currently, we can only sign the container images with notation for arbitrary release file, like the archive file, we cannot sign with notation right now. We need to wait until notation v1.2 released.
Actually, there are different ways. We don't necessarily need to wait for not project. I mean, for Ratify point of view, it's more urgent. We needed to take actions.
Is the signing portion independent of the provenance work? I'm not as familiar with what
It-
tool you'd use. Would you just use Salsa or some equivalent to generate the provenance?
Yeah, actually, the provenance is a statement, right?
Mhm.
So normally if you sign a statement, so make it attestations that so that people can trust. Otherwise, you cannot prove this provenance file from a trusted source and not modify, right? So that's they always come together. But the first step is, of course, you need to generate the provenance statement.
I think those are two things because the scanning results mentioned there are 0 out of 5 artifacts are signed or have provenance, right? So I think those are two different things or two different scanning purposes. So provenance and signed release or the signature should be attached to the and published alongside with the release.
I would suggest that we can create issue if not there to follow up the actions that from the meeting the presentation meeting so that we can address this issue one by one. And also, I think there are some other projects, right? So we can follow the best practice and see how other projects what they did. Can you switch back? Okay. So we probably need an issue for sign released artifacts and one issue for the provenance and can you scroll up, Akash?
In
And also for
this
sure
one?
we need, I mean the agenda, I want to see whether other comments
Yes.
from the CNCF. Okay, the first one is sign release, binaries and images, provenance. Okay, this is clear. These two. Then we need to address the CVE, right? And release the patch version for that. For the in total support, it's a collaboration, right? With in total.
Yes, yeah, there were multiple members of Intoto there. They were
Yeah.
interested in using Ratify and wanted to get a workflow set up. One point that they wanted to see was beyond just the attestation portion of Intoto, the Intoto framework actually defines like a cryptographic way to verify each step in your supply chain, right? So they're wondering how does Ratify kind of fit into that in terms of overlaps or not, or unique factors of Ratify, because it's not just, I guess from the Intoto framework, it's not, you're not verifying an artifact independently. It's in the context of a series of steps. So they wanted to understand more on how Ratify fits into that, or if it does fit into that.
Okay. Yeah. So that's we needed to also clarify that,
Yeah.
right? And, okay.
And then they did mention the security review. It wasn't brought up in a context of this is required right now, but they recommended that they have a self-guided review checklist that we go through. And I think there's some questions that guide there. And then based off of your filling out of that questionnaire, they have a dedicated security review group that can look at that and then highlight any extra concerns they have.
Okay.
Did they reference a guide
Mhm.
for their review process?
They did, yeah. So I can send you the link. It's on the CNCF Tag Security website.
Just make sure the link to be added to the notes. You don't
Yeah.
need to send it directly to me.
Yeah, I'll add it to the notes. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Beyond that, I'm trying to think what else, some of the other major topics. There was discussion around performance concerns with Ratify with admission control. So we talked about how some of the work we've done there. There was also concerns or questions around whether we will support salsa and how that will tie into it. So I mentioned we were looking into potentially creating like a salsa verifier for Ratify. Yeah, I think those are most of the issues brought up. Any other ones that folks can remember who attended the meeting?
I think Luis, Sajay, Shui dropped.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, I think Junsheng, you were there as well. So if you have any thoughts.
I thought it's you did quite well job and all the questions have been answered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it was very late, so
And actually, I found like most of the folks are from the internal, right?
yeah, we had a lot of Microsoft folks community there.
Oh.
It was great. It's in good support. But yeah, there were also other folks from the core CNC of Tag group as well.
Yeah.
So that was nice to get their feedback.
Awesome starter.
Junchen, you are also in that meeting.
Yeah, because I wanna check. I found
You want to
that
hear some feedback
document.
from the industry?
Yeah, so most of them have been noted down already. Overall, I think it's like a positive feedback from the community.
Yeah.
Great. I think
so.
it was a good beginning. This is one of the process in the before CNCF TOC review our application on June 11th. They will seek for the feedback from CNCF Tech Security, especially their co-chairs and their governance group. So I think this will impact the decision making in the CNCF TOC review on June 11th.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. I think if we can start to address some of the feedback, it'll kind of show good faith in the right direction here. So yeah, that's all I had on the agenda today. Anything else anyone wanted to talk about?
no, from my side, I think we have some actions to follow up for this.
Okay. In that
Good.
case, we can end early then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.